Jakpa. In fact, we deceive one. Now, and young one say how the NDC is any municipality. Na ene court to be kwasitra. Na cross examination yakoso. Na ye nhunu any form of a press conference. Obi ebusa sa question because odo ani chiremu e the Financial and Economic Crime Division of the Accra High Court now. NDC Propaganda Secretary Sami Jemfino, half of minority MPs in Parliament, they were there at the court to solidarize with Dr. Casey Latofos and Richard Jakpa and the NDC fraternity. In as usual, the Nanko be here say after court proceedings, press conference change besa akoso. Nanka Johnson Asiedun Ketia, the choir master, and after the chairman of all propaganda, Sabi Jemfi, Abeke Comunsil. But ye pon court to noa na shim obi adwane. It is because lawyer Paul Adomo Chichiremwa and komo na ekoso court ne say the NDC feels being deceived by Richard Jakpa. Edientia and the BBPM court. All along, WhatsApp messages between Jakpa and the Attorney General, and number one thing, just 4. The NDC has a privilege of knowing 14 WhatsApp messages between Jakpa and the Attorney General. And Omuko PM Kota say a Yamaku 68. Adiana who ya a mind this phone say Jakpa dada omuni. Court Ubusa Jakpa say a DNT and I was 68 WhatsApp messages between you and the Attorney General. Yeah, conversation. Not only 14 out the by. Jakpa to me being a no catch court. And NDC for say he picked the 14 because Ophelia said no. And then they see you too. Then someone know what case. Oh, you are. And this is for some aboka. Jai. NDC pass supporters. A child did say. Dear don't dear. Dear CB and Fancho, dear Tia. Richard Jakpa deceived them. There were new mobia. Want to me and the dear Fancho. A do baby crying was said lawyers for Jakpa objected to the attending of the 68 WhatsApp message because Omunim Hori Yankoni and Kojinchiri more FM-free lawyer Paul Adomachi.
Before we come to this, the questions, the two takeaways. Let's get there first. So it's fundamental and you can move on. Yes, thank you. Now, in the second level, we'll have a third level on the text message, but the second level of the argument, it says Jakpa claims that Justice Kulendi went all the way to the Attorney General's office during court proceedings to ask the Attorney General to help Jakpa go home due to complications in the verification of documents used by Jakpa to secure bail. Now, this is the story, viewers. This is because the matter is in court. The only word I can use to qualify it is interesting. He says, Justice Kulendi, thank you very much for this. Justice Kulendi sitting as a Supreme Court judge on a panel of 5. He's not sitting as a sole judge. And he's not sitting as an additional court of appeal judge. He's sitting as a Supreme Court judge. Panel of 5. He's not the only one on the panel. 5 of them. Jakpa told the High Court today that while Justice Kulendi was sitting there, he phoned Justice Kulendi and said that whereas he has satisfied bail conditions, it was still being difficult for the people to grant him the bail for him to go home. And he told the court, this also, viewers, please pay attention if you can. He told the court that Justice Kulendi, upon receiving his call, his Jakpa's call, departed from the bench. He told the court that Justice Kulendi was still robed in the legal way. Look at where the Supreme Court, those of you who don't live in Accra, the distance between the Supreme Court and the Attorney General's office on a weekday by driving is easily 25 minutes. That's the minimum. It could be 45. It could even be an hour, but it's easily 25 minutes. Jakpa told the court that the sitting Supreme Court judge, whilst sitting on the case, got a phone call from him, Jakpa, relating to the difficulties of his bail conditions. And the Supreme Court judge left the courts, drove to the Attorney General's office. Here we depict Justice Kulendi and the Attorney General. My graphics guy, cartoon guy, is beautiful, man. That guy does a good job. We call him at 3 o'clock and say, Charlie, can you put the cartoon together? You don't have to say much. Papa, he'll do it. This is what he gave us. Beautiful. Fantastic. So, Justice Kulendi comes to the Attorney General's office, sits down in this chair. This is the Attorney General with his legs crossed in a blue suit. And then, please, you have to put a tie on Godfrey Dame. He's always wearing the tie. He doesn't do the things that we are doing here. So next time, graphics, put tie on Godfrey Dame, red tie or some black and white Adisco tie. Kulendi tells Dame that, arrange bail for my cousin Jakpa. He's still in the Supreme Court robe. He climbs up to the 3rd floor of the Attorney General's office, the old office, because of course there's a new office called the Law House. He climbed up to the 3rd floor in his robe. This is what Jakpa told the court. I mean, if you are Jakpa's lawyer, my goodness, what will be going through your head? That the Supreme Court judge stopped the sitting and left the floor, ran to the artist's car, went to the Attorney General's office and told him, grant my cousin Jakpa bail. What do you make of this story, viewers? I don't know. The matter is still in court and is before the next photograph. The matter is still in court and is before the judge. So this is Jakpa in there. This is Jakpa in there. And he's looking for bail. And he says that Kulendi, he makes a phone call to Justice Kulendi, and Justice Kulendi stops his work. I mean, this is what he said. Justice Kulendi stops the work that he's doing, hearing a matter before the Supreme Court. He is still in his red and black robe, goes to Attorney General's office. This is what Jakpa told the court today. We have nothing to say about it, just to say that it's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Anyway, now the last part of Jakpa's testimony, which is the most bizarre, is what I told you about. Text messages are 68 text messages that he sent to the Attorney General, and the record shows the Attorney General replied 2 of the 68. He sent 68 messages, Attorney General replied 2. He was asking court that, why do you know, can you confirm that many of the text messages you sent to the Attorney General, he didn't reply, he replied only 2 of them, which had to do with a schedule for you guys to meet. Then he says, oh, he didn't reply because the text message I sent is motivational message. You are an accused person. Every morning you are sending Attorney General motivational message. Is he your friend? Is he your church member? Why are you sending him motivational message? Do you go to the same church? Are you in the same fellowship? You accused person, 3rd accused. You claim that Attorney General helped you secure bail. Every morning I'm sending him text motivational. I want to see some of those messages. Does it say that give up not, don't despair, move on to the next level. If you fail, you rise again. Good morning, Attorney General. Is that the thing he was doing? Is that guy a member of your church? Mr. Jakpa, this is what he told the court. This is what he told the court today. This is the kind of witness we are dealing with. The guy who can have a 26-minute phone call and produce only 14 minutes. He has 68 messages. He produces 25. Why do you produce 25? That is just my own. This is my case. I'm not doing his case for him. So the text messages that will exonerate him, I won't give it to the court. I think that the court will look at it and agree with me. I will give it to the court. All the 68 is about court. Here, 25 gets. That's Jakpa. The same text messages is handed over to the NDC. So you see, I've been telling you that there are some good people in the NDC. When the NDC did a press conference, they were unaware that Jakpa didn't give them all until we came to show it here. So some of them were calling me and saying, why they asked about it is the Jakpa thing? When Johnson said, look at it, so Jakpa, he deceived the NDC chairman and Samuel Jemfi because he didn't give them all the text messages. They thought he had given them all. So the ones that we got, they didn't have. And that's what Jakpa confirmed to the court today. That he gave only 25 text messages out. The audio recording, he put out only 14 of 26 minutes. That's what he did. He picks and chooses. He's not interested in telling the court the whole truth. He's not interested. He's not interested in telling the court the whole truth. It would appear so. I hope he's interested. But it would appear that he's not interested in telling the court the whole truth. I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. But the way it looks, you have to decide, viewers. And I'm sure that his lordship will decide so that we all know. But the way he does it, well, what can you say? I don't know. I really don't know. You don't know whether you should believe him. You don't know whether you shouldn't believe him. But he says, court, take 25. That's fine. That's okay. Take the 25. Take it. It's fine. Then the Attorney General now says, oh, you are giving the court 25. My lords, I want to bring all 68 so that the court can take the value of it. 68 is the whole truth. It's nothing but the truth. 68, the whole truth. Nothing but the truth. Then lawyers for Jakpa, we can't tell whether it's on the instruction of Jakpa or it's on their own instincts. We really can't tell because lawyers are usually working on the instructions of clients, but we don't know this one. What happened though is that lawyers for Jakpa come out and say, Judge, we will object to your taking the text message from the Attorney General. We will object. That's what the lawyer said. We will object. Now, what is the basis of the objection? Of the objection? Then one of the lawyers says that the text message, the typed document that Attorney General is submitting is black and white. In text, some is green and some is white. Why is his own black and white? Viewers, you know the answer to the question that the judge gave? The judge said, but you two, the text message you brought, it was in black and white. So if yours was in black and white, why are you objecting to theirs in black and white? Then the guy says, well, the fact that ours is black and white, it was accepted, doesn't mean that his own should also be accepted. Another lawyer said that, okay, let me study it first. So the court held the matter down and said, okay, let them study it on Thursday. Let's come and hear the objection. If there's no objection, we'll accept it. If there's an objection, we'll hear it and we'll rule upon it. This is what happened in court today. There'll be more on Thursday. But you have to remember that Mr. Jakpa says out of 68, he gives 25. He doesn't want to give the rest because to go against his case. Out of the audio recording, he gave 14. So he gave text messages to the NDC. NDC were not aware that it's not the whole thing. And then based upon that, they held a press conference. Okay, story has ended now, hasn't it? Yeah, it's in the chair. He's asked that the text messages that you sent or that you have published, how many were they? He says 14. Then it is suggested to him that overall, there are 68 text messages that you advance to the learned Attorney General. He says yes. They said, okay, so at 68, why did you publish 14? He said, well, I published the one that will help my case. I'm not so sure whether in terms of the outcome that he was actually suggesting that or conceding that the other text messages were against his case. I'm not saying he said that. I don't know whether that's what it will mean. But this is what he said. He said, I published the one that is in favor of my case. And the suggestion is that you have sworn an oath to be truthful to the court. And you see, when you swear the oath to be truthful to the court, they add another line. They don't just say truthful. They say the whole truth. That is what when you are taking the oath, that's what they say. I don't know whether he had forgotten. So if you are his lawyer and you are sitting at the bar listening to him, I feel very sorry for how the lawyers must have felt this afternoon. The guy has taken an oath to speak the whole truth. The truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. He comes and says, in terms of text messages, I didn't give you the whole. I gave you some. I said, okay, why? What animated that thinking? He said, but me, I'm giving you the one that will help my case. Viewers, you have still not heard the words. Those of you who haven't heard the story, you have still not heard the words. Maybe the other media houses didn't publish that. Media houses are free to choose whichever angle they want to take. But this also happened in the court. And it is significant in terms of understanding how people's minds work when they get into this politico-legal situations in court, where they are not able to distinguish between the political and the legal, and they seem to be mishmashing the political into the legal and creating all kinds of problems for themselves. Then the worst is what I'm going to tell you now. Then they say, okay, so there's some of the text messages left. He said, yes, there is. If the Attorney General likes, he can tender that one. Court said, no problem. Prosecution rise. My lord, we would like to tender the rest. And guess what the lawyers say? And that's why I'm sympathizing with them. I'm sure they were so unsettled and unnerved by the performance of their client, the lawyer said they object, at least one of them, Bassett, said he objects to the Attorney General tendering the other side of the text messages, which Jakpa, his client, had acknowledged does exist. Jakpa has acknowledged that there is, okay, let's do the percentage quickly, please. Mika, calculate the percentage for me. 14 of 68, what percentage is it? Calculate it quickly. So that is, if less more divide, isn't it? 100 is equal to 68, and therefore 14. If less more divide. So 14 over 68 times 100. Let's get it done very quickly. An overwhelming percentage of the text messages have not been produced to the courts or to the general public. And you have to do it quickly, Michael. 14 over
68.
What?
14% of 68.
No, 14 out of 68. What percentage is it? 68 is 100%.
I'm coming.
Those of you listening, if you are sharper at maths, Michael is an arts boy. 20.5. So 14% of the text messages, which is what you submitted, constitutes 20.5% or 20.58, nearly 20.6% of the whole text messages. Here is a guy who has sworn an oath to tell the courts the whole truth. He brings some evidence that he hopes will be important in the outcome, the final determination of the matter. And in submitting this, he says, I'm submitting only 20.5%. The court says, do you acknowledge that there is more? He said, oh yeah, there's a lot more. Why didn't you submit all that? It is not in favor of my case. I submitted what's in favor of my case. A person who is going to assist the court to come to the truth, the whole truth, says these things. You are his lawyer. Viewers, you are his lawyer. How are you going to deal with this? How are you going to deal with this if you are Jakpa's lawyer? How? You are listening to him and you see what he's saying. Then the Attorney General rises and says, okay, no problem. We will tender the rest. And then his lawyers come out and say, we will not allow you to tender it. The reason they gave is an interesting reason.
Yeah, what do you make of Richard Jakpa's testimony today?
You've seen the character of Richard Jakpa, saying that he was dismissed from the military.
We are doing a cross-examination, and that forms part of our cross-examination. And what you just heard is what you just said.
How difficult have you found Richard Jakpa to be in the witness box?
You were in court. You witnessed it. Make your own judgment.
At a point, DPP appeared to be frustrated with some of the answers Richard Jakpa was giving. You were in your seat. How did you feel?
She wasn't frustrated. She did a yeoman's job.
Now, from the answers from the accused person, are you surprised with them, especially so when they're asking one question and taking about 4 pages to answer? Are you surprised?
I think you pass your own judgment.
So the AG has come back to court today. I saw him passing questions to the DPP, mentioning questions to the DPP to ask Jakpa. Has he defied the directive by this trial judge, and now technically he's taking part of the ongoing trial, you would say?
Let me make this correction. There was no directive from the trial judge.
The advice.
Exactly. Advice, you watch out the space, whether the AG will stand to conduct the case or will observe the proceedings.
But technically,
right, just like you, to be in court, observe proceedings. As to whether you conduct the case, leave the space unless you have.
But technically, he is asking questions because he was passing questions to the DPP, dictating questions for her to ask Jakpa. That is technically taking part of.
He wasn't dictating questions to the DPP to ask. But if you are even a litigant in court,